Hi, in this video we're going to take a look at how to add a quiz or exam on Moodle. The first step is that we have to turn our editing on, and once the editing is on we can add an activity. So I'm just going to use the ALS Moodle shell as a place to add a quiz or exam for the purpose of this video. And say I scroll down to a certain week of my term and I want to add a quiz or exam, I will click on Add an Activity or Resource, and then I'm going to choose Quiz. The module in Moodle for quizzes and exams is called the Quiz module, so I'll click on Add. And then I'll give it a name. I'm going to call this the final exam. I can add a description of it if I'd like. This is a good place to add details about what the exam covers. It might also be a place to add information about where students can take the exam. If, for instance, you have arranged for the exam to be taken in the testing center, then students must take it in the testing center, and you could include that information here, for instance. There's a place to include timing for the quiz, so you can have the quiz open on a certain day at a certain time. You can have the quiz close on a certain day at a certain time. It could be several days later. And you can also add a time limit if you wish for the exam. So say for instance I'm going to give a 120-minute time limit for an exam, and I have it open for 3 days. That means that once a student logs in and begins the exam, if I've had just one attempt available for students, if they can take the exam just one time, any time that they come in between when the exam opens and when it closes, they will have 120 minutes to complete the exam. So they don't have to necessarily start it as soon as it opens, but they do need to complete it before it closes. There are some standard Moodle questions that you can answer here. If you have grade categories, you can choose your grade categories. How many attempts would you like to allow? Are you allowing just one attempt, or would you allow students to take it as many times as they wish? Would you like them to be able to take it 2 times and then have their highest grade recognized? It's really, there are a lot of different options of how you can set it up. Some questions about layout, questions about feedback, and then the review options is a particularly important piece to consider. What kind of information do you want to be available to students immediately after the attempt? As soon as they finish, do you want them to have their score? Do you want them to receive feedback right away? Do you want them later while the quiz is still open and other students may be taking it to see any additional information? And then after the quiz is closed, and that means after the quiz is closed to all students. So you may wish to, for instance, allow students to see specific feedback or general feedback, to review their attempt, to see the entire quiz or exam after it's closed, for instance. We have some general questions related to different options. Many of these are optional changes that you could make if you want to really, kind of customize your exam. There's a place to add feedback, so if you'd like general feedback, for instance, if you have a student who gets a score between 90%, here's a grade boundary, and 100%, some feedback. This is kind of overall feedback that you would provide that goes with the entire exam score, not with individual questions. So you could add that general feedback if you'd like. I'm just going to scroll all the way down and choose Save and Display. So I have created the exam. However, at this point I have added no questions, so there are no questions in the exam. So here we can see the details. It opens on Tuesday, December 10th, closes Friday, December 13th, has a time limit of 2 hours, and 1 attempt is allowed. Most important information that students would need to know about the exam is right there. So I'm going to go into edit the quiz, and this is where I have the opportunity to add questions. So I will click on Add Question, and you'll see that there are a variety of different question types. It is also possible to create categories of questions and create question banks. That will be out of the scope of this video. However, if you're just trying to create one quiz or one exam, for instance, if you happen to have a snow day and you'd like to put your final online, you can go in and simply add questions to the exam without going through all the trouble of creating categories or question banks. So say I'd like to add a true-false question. I can add a true-false question. I just look at that drop-down menu and choose the type of the question. I can add a question name. This is going to be about adding tests. Question text, so this is where I will type in the true or false question. Adding a test on Moodle is relatively easy. Well, of course, this is an opinion question, so it would probably not be a very good true or false question, but since we have this video, I'm going to say that the correct answer here is true. I have a place where I can choose the number of points for the question, leave it at 1 point, or change the number of points. I can give general feedback for the question. I can give feedback if someone chooses the true answer. I can say, yes, that's correct. It is actually easy. Or feedback for the response false. If it's difficult, please see one of your faculty technology specialists, or whatever feedback you'd like to have for that specific question. And then I will save changes. And I have added one question. I could go through and continually add questions. There are a variety of different types: multiple choice, short answer, numerical, essay, matching, really quite a large number of different types of questions that you can add. Some questions can be graded automatically by Moodle, such as true, false, multiple choice. Short answer questions, you could have Moodle grade them, but generally I always find that it's important to review students' answers even if you have set it up for Moodle to grade the answer, because students often make typos, and unless you have multiple answers for all possible typos, you may have a question that's marked incorrectly. So, and of course an essay question would be graded by an instructor and not by Moodle. So you go through, add all of your questions, and once you're done, you have created your exam. And that is basically what it takes in order to create the exam. Just going to go back to the assignment here briefly, and I'm going to preview it. As an instructor, you can preview the quiz. Students are not allowed to preview it, but I will preview it. I'm going to say start attempt, even though I'm not actually attempting it. I've only added one question, but you can see there is my question, and I have a little timer here showing me that I have a little bit less than 2 hours to complete the exam from when I started it. So those are the steps for adding an exam on Moodle.